question whether it has to do with so I can just sort of yes, it's just true or false. It's just true or false. That's funny. That's really funny.
And then as soon as I hit it, it's almost like,
I know. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I love those things though. I haven't watched them. Almost. So true though. Supposed to be. I don't know anything. I feel like so that's what wow. So stupid. Change one aspect. That's because that's their eyes in their heads. Physiology. Just like being actions. Not all someone still an action. Not all. So I watched this video. Oh, so. So, so, I was supposed to. It's not. So, so, so that's it. So let's say, so, yeah. No, that's not what yeah, that's awkward. That's how you do it. It's supposed to be and they have like but you're just showing the person who has to so like this so there's Yeah, I know, because I'm watching you. And I'm like, okay, this is scary. So after doing that a couple times, I was like,
This guy.
something. If you have a specific result, Robert, I love you. I go, oh. And I just like, it's like, why? You know, because you do that, it's really good that damage. And so, supposedly that's so, it's like, hello, it's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. If you try to nails it, honestly, whatever, I have, everybody I have. Yeah. It's like, and it's just so that I don't know what it is. It's just like the way that it's completely different. I don't know what it is. That's not good. I don't know. But if I try that, just stop. And you're like, what do you think? It's like the first thing. Right. Most guys. It's like,
Alright guys, doesn't seem like anyone's going to join the class. To the one viewer who's watching this class, welcome. I'm going to run through the topics that we are going to discuss in this class. As this is an intermediate class, we will be focusing more on the grammar and not so much on the discussion, but it still merits some attention. And we will be devoting some attention to the article once we get to that part. So the theme of this class was Hey Ken, how's it going?
Yes, I'm
I
fine.
apologize. I apologize for my network connection. There's something with my network that was
Okay.
causing a mistake.
Maybe
Yeah,
you are in a restaurant or something.
I am. I'm in a Starbucks right now, actually. So I reached
Okay.
California. I reached
Wow.
California, right?
Wow.
And I decided to. I decided I'm not at my destination yet, but I will be in about 2 hours. So
Mhm.
after this class is over, I'm gonna head down to a friend's house in San Jose.
Oh,
So
San
San
Jose.
San Jose, yeah, that's where I'll be. So Ken, thanks for joining because I was talking to myself a little while ago. We are, in terms of the discussion topics, right? Since this is an intermediate class, I think you're already at the advanced intermediate stage. You don't need to focus so much on the grammar. So starting today on Colingo, we're actually doing a different style of classes. So we have, instead of the 100 to 400 levels, we are actually replacing them with levels. For example, beginner, high beginner, low intermediate, intermediate, high intermediate. Words like that, right? 1 second, Ken, I'm really sorry.
Okay.
Yo, dude, I'm in class. Yeah. All right, so, for example, if we want to say, this is an intermediate class, right? So you're already way above this level. Intermediate classes focus on the grammar more so than the discussion article. High intermediate, for example, focuses on the discussion article a lot more. So I just had a high intermediate class a little while ago. So just for the purpose of being fair to the person who's viewing this class, as well as for making the video, because this is being broadcast, I will go ahead and spend a little bit of time on the grammar, but it's not something that we're going to focus on too much. We're going to dive into the article afterwards. Sounds good?
Okay.
Alrighty, awesome, Ken. So what the topic of today's class are the WH questions, right? Sorry, they're making some drink. I'm really sorry, Ken.
No.
When we have these words, right, these WH words or these WA words, right, we have who, what, when, where, why, and we also have how, right? So these are the 6 words that we use very commonly in English when we're making sentences, right? Really, there's not much else to it. I mean, honestly, it's just this is how we make sentences, right? So who questions begin with who is or who was, right? Who is the new president of Nicaragua? I don't know, right? Who is your friend, right? Maybe you come with someone to your house, somebody asks you, your mother asks you, who is your friend, right? Different situations like that, right? When it comes to what questions, so who is always about a person. What is always about an idea or a specific thing, an interest of something, right? So what would be maybe, it could be anything, really. What do you do? That's another way of asking, what's your job? It could also be, what's another example, Ken, of a question that uses what?
What time is it?
What time is it, right? Fantastic. What time is it? What kinds of food do you like? Really anything at all. It could be an interest. It could be an item of it, an item that you want to ask about, or a question, any real kind of question, right? So, what about? So we saw who and we saw what. What about where? What is where focused on?
We are focused on location, the place.
Absolutely. So when we ask where, we usually ask where is something, right? Where is my computer? Where is my phone? I can't believe I forgot my phone. Where is it? I have to look for it, right? Whatever the case might be. So where is using location. What about if we are asking when questions, Ken? What's the deal with when?
When asked the time.
Precisely, right? When is always about the time. So how do we usually form when questions?
When will you reach to your destination?
When will you reach your destination? Yeah. So it could be a future tense, right? We can also use when in the present tense, right? When is your flight, right? And we can also use the past tense, right? When was your birthday? Or when did you have that party? Right? When did you throw your last party? Something like that, right? Those are all examples, right? So we looked at who, what, when, where, and how about how? What about how? What do we use for how?
How ask the way of doing something, or how to reach there. Or,
Absolutely. How is actually, a lot of times it's used for directions, right? How do I get there? How do I do this? So you're asking for directions because you don't know how to accomplish something, right? And we also use how for quantity, like how much is something, right? how much is this? How much does this cost, right?
Mm.
And we also use it for feelings.
Mm.
What's an example of a sentence with feeling that uses how?
How are you?
How are you, right? Or even something more specific and not creative, how do you feel? You know, I mean, that's another very simple example, right? How do you feel? It's not a creative way at all, but people ask it all the time, right? How do you feel? So, great. Those are the questions, really. I mean, those are the 6 different ways that we use make these questions in English, using who, what, when, where, why, and how. Any questions on that, Ken?
No, but sometimes I confused about the usage of what and how. Yeah.
Very good question.
Sometimes
Very
that
good
happens.
question.
Yeah.
So with what, it's really, I think it's easier to focus on how, because how is a little bit more specific. What is very general, right? What is extremely general. So how, there are 3 things we use how for: feelings, okay, directions, and quantity, right? Feelings, directions, and quantity. So how do I go back to my house? How do I get to San Jose? Right? So right now, after this class, I'm going to ask Google Maps, how do I go to San Jose? And it's pretty easy. I just take Interstate 80 until one exit, and I take the exit, right? So it's simple. It's an ordered sequence, right? But then, for example, if you want to use what, right? Many times people say, what can I do? What are my options, right? So let's say you're asking somebody for directions, right? You're asking, I want to go to San Jose. What can I do to get there, right? Not how can I get there, even though how can I get there is more common and more appropriate for this example. You can also say, what can I do to get there?
Okay.
What road do I take to get there, right? So it's a little bit more specific, because you can use any noun with what. You can say, what road, what do I do, right? Not how do I do, but what do I do to get there, right? What can I use to get there? What are some landmarks that I can use to get there? Maybe the gas station. When you see the gas station, make a right turn, right? Sometimes people give you directions using landmarks, using symbols, right? So those are where what is a little bit more appropriate. But generally, if it's directions, feelings, and quantity, we can use how. Pretty easily, like without really thinking too much about it. Was there an example that you had in mind, maybe, about what and how that you were maybe confused about, or you thought maybe both of them could work? Did you have one in mind? Not to put you on
For
the spot.
example, what can I do? How can I do? A bit maybe such kind of sometimes I make a mistake, such kind of thing.
No, it's a very valid point, right? What can I do is actually the more common way of saying that, right? Because if you say, for example, how can I do, you have to be sure, you have to have something that you want to do, right? How can I do by itself, just that statement doesn't tell me anything, right? You have to say something like, how can I prepare sushi, right? You have to give me an idea of what it is that you want to do for how to be appropriate, right? But what can I do can really just stand by itself. When somebody is desperate, when somebody doesn't have any options, they can say, oh my God, what can I do? Or what do I do? Right? It doesn't need a context. It's you use a question like that or a sentence like that when you really have no idea, regardless of the situation, right? What do I do? I can't believe I had this accident. What do I do? Oh my God, what do I do? People freak out, right? People freak out when there's crisis situation. But how do I do is much more. How do I do needs a context, right? How do I do something? So what's that something? How do I get to San Jose? How do I prepare edamame? How do I buy a plane ticket online? Right? Any of those specific examples, I think we should use how. And generally, we use how. We use how do I do something, right? But when you really have no idea, what can I do? Right? I have no idea. Can you please help me? What can I do? You have no idea, right? and it's used a lot in crisis situations. Like something happens to you, someone steals something from you, you lose something, something bad happens. People say, "I have no idea. Please help me. What can I do?" Or what can I do to fix this problem? Sometimes people ask that, right? So you have a problem, so you have a situation, maybe a crisis situation or a solution, something needs a solution. What can I do to fix this problem? Or how would you use how? If it's a problem situation, how could you use how? With what, you can say, what can I do to solve this problem? What about how?
How maybe I tend to ask using how for asking the way of doing something.
Yeah. But in this particular example, instead of saying, what can I do to solve this problem? How could you say the same thing with how? Right? So with what, it would be, what can I do? What can I do to solve this problem? That's with how, right? Or that's with what, right? What about with how? What would be the example with how do?
How can I do to solve the problem? No.
See, so no, very close though, very close, Ken. We don't need to use do when we use how.
How can I solve this problem?
Fantastic,
Okay.
fantastic. How can I solve this problem, right? Because when you use what, you're saying can, and can is the auxiliary that needs do, right? But when you say how, you can just say, how do I solve this problem, right? Or how can I solve this problem? Both of them will work. You don't need to say the do when we use how. You can say, how do I solve this problem? I'm sorry. So there are multiple ways, right? I didn't mean to confuse you. How can I solve this problem? Right? That's one example. We can also say, how do I solve this problem? Right? But we don't say, how can I do to solve this problem? We can either use can or do. We can't use both.
Oh yeah.
With how, right? But with what, we have to use can and do. Yeah. So does that help a little bit, Ken?
Yeah, it's very helpful. Yes, thank you very much.
Good. Yeah, let me know anytime, because sometimes we have these questions, right? And they don't appear in normal conversation, and I don't think of them. Because when you guys present them to me, that's when I think, wow, okay, how can I? No, honestly, it's so helpful. Like I was telling the kids in the last class that now Colingo is really shifting, especially for people like you, man. You're like advanced, like higher than advanced intermediate, right? For you, the topic should be conversation. Like grammar is the grammar that we cover in the lessons is very easy in comparison to the questions that you're asking, right? So we're looking for those specifics. We want you guys to focus on, we read the article and you see something and you tell me, hey Farhan, I don't understand why you're using how can I, but the article uses, for example, how do I, or something like that, right? So those specific questions, really, honestly, that's what we want to focus on. We want you guys to understand the articles, have a very meaningful and productive discussion about what we talk about. Using the grammar in the discussion as much as possible, not focusing so much on the construction and the verbs and stuff, because you guys already get that stuff. You guys already understand the basics. We want you guys to move on to that more advanced level of putting those pieces together, connecting the dots, learning about those examples, learning about those exceptions to the rules, right? I think that's going to be critical for you guys. So start thinking about that too, man. Not only for my class, but every other Colingo teacher is starting this new process from today. All the classes are redesigned, right? So we are doing a brand new experiment now to see if we can cater to you guys better, right? Yeah. Sweet. So Ken, let's look at this article. So the article is interesting because we are talking about politics to a certain extent, and we are looking at what happened to an athlete, an Egyptian athlete, when he expressed support for the president who was kicked out. Right. Yeah. So Egypt right now is in a tough spot, right? What happened there actually, Ken? Do you remember what happened?
I think militant coup d'etat happened, and former president was arrested. Yeah.
this guy who his supporters say that he's the first democratically elected president of Egypt.
Mm,
His supporters say that. The military says that he was not a legitimately elected leader, that now the military has the power because they should have the power, they should restore democracy, blah, 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 blah. I'm always right, you're always wrong, he's always left, I'm always right, Politics is politics, right? So, and unfortunately this has interfered with athletics now, right? And with one person's identity, actually, with one person's accomplishment. So we'll take a look at this then, Ken. And also one other thing, Ken, right, that we're actually focusing on right now. Whenever we read an article, I'm going to pause after every 2 or 3 paragraphs and ask you if there were any questions.
Okay.
So if you do have any questions, let me know. Like if there was a word that didn't make sense or something like that, let me know and we'll be able to review that. Instead of me looking at the whole article and then going back, we'll do it in pieces now. All right, sounds good. So let's see here, guys, or just Ken, with this article about Egypt, right? So this Egyptian athlete has been stripped of his gold medal for Morsi support. Morsi is that ousted president, right? So an athlete has been stripped of his gold medal. So let's see. An Egyptian kung fu champion has been stripped of a gold medal after showing support for ousted President Mohamed Morsi, according to his family. Mohamed Yusuf has also been banned from representing his country. Mr. Yusuf was photographed at a tournament in Russia wearing a T-shirt with the symbol showing solidarity with pro-Morsi protesters. So, any questions so far about
solidarity?
Solidarity, huh? Solidarity. What do you think it means, Ken? Actually, before I just say the answer.
A symbol showing solidarity with pro-Morsi protesters. Maybe sympathy or support.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The first word that was on my mind was support. And sympathy works very well as well. When you are showing solidarity, you are showing your support. First and foremost, you're showing your support. Fantastic. So this guy was showing support. He was wearing a shirt that was showing solidarity with the pro-president supporters, the guy who was ousted, right? Egypt's government has cracked down on supporters of the former president after he was deposed in July, right? Mr. Yusuf's brother, Hammam, says the athlete was sent home early from the contest and interrogated on arrival, reports the BBC's Orla Guerin in Cairo. The gold medal he had won was confiscated. Any questions about any of these paragraphs, Ken? What about deposed, Ken? I'm just curious. Do you know what deposed means?
Maybe kind of how can I say, get away from that status.
Yeah, he was kicked out.
Yeah, kicked out. Yes.
Yeah, deposed is kicked out or to be forced out, right? So somebody who's deposed is really forced out of his position, right? And what about here? So this one right here. What about interrogated, Ken? What does that mean?
Interrogated.
He was interrogated on arrival. When he came back to his country, he was interrogated.
I don't know. Interrogate.
Interrogate means when somebody takes you in a room, 2 policemen, and they just question you.
Okay.
They put pressure on you. They question you. Maybe the room has one door, maybe a glass window, one light from the ceiling, and they ask you, so what did you do? Where did you go? What did you see? And you can't lie, or I mean, you feel very nervous. So people are usually in a very difficult situation when they're interrogated, right? Interrogation means to be questioned in a very serious way. Not just me asking, hey Ken, how's it going? No, like very, very strict and very strong way to get information from the person. So you interrogate criminals, you interrogate terrorists, right? You interrogate anybody that you suspects for crimes, you interrogate as well, right? So, and what about this last word, confiscated?
Confiscated. The gold medal has won was maybe was taken.
Yes,
taken
absolutely.
Away.
Taken by force.
Yes.
When something is confiscated, it is taken by force. You don't voluntarily give it up. It's taken from you. right?
Yes.
So that was great, Ken. Great job on all three of those words. Freedom of speech. State-run media pictured him receiving the honor in a T-shirt emblazoned with an open palm and four fingers, the symbol of a pro-Morsi camp violently cleared by the authorities. Kung Fu player Mohammed Yusuf will be deported from Russia due to his behavior. Egypt Kung Fu Association Executive Officer Gamal Al-Jazar told Ahram Online. He will also be banned from representing Egypt in the coming Kung Fu World Championship. So these three paragraphs, Ken, right? State-run media pictured him receiving the honor in a T-shirt emblazoned with an open arm, with an open palm and four fingers. What is emblazoned? This is a difficult word.
Maybe it sounds like protesting of something.
Yeah, good try, good try. That's awesome thinking, Ken. In a T-shirt that is emblazoned with an open palm and four fingers. Emblazoned means something that's displayed in a very profound way, in a very powerful way. So if something emblazons a T-shirt, it's very prominent on that T-shirt. It's very noticeable on that T-shirt. So to emblazon is to make it very clear and make it to display something in a very open and powerful way, right? So, for example, protesters sometimes emblazon their signs are emblazoned with different logos, right? So maybe you are protesting against something in Palestine, right? You might emblazon your posters with maybe flags of Israel, or flags of Israel with like that X on it. You know how different people, they do different things when it comes to symbols. They draw X's through the flags of different countries to show that they hate those countries, right? So emblazoning something is really emblazoning is to display in a very profound way. And the symbol that this group is using is this symbol right here, a palm with four fingers outstretched. This is their symbol. This is the symbol of the people who support the president.
I see.
And that T-shirt had this symbol on it. So, and then what about anything else here? So Kung Fu player blah 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 will be deported from Russia. What does deported mean?
Same as kicked out.
Yeah, kind of like deposed, right? But deported is more from an immigration point of view. That if you go to a country and you do something in that country that they don't like, they will send you back to your country. So, for example, if you kill somebody in France, unless they take you to jail, if they take you to jail, I think they would if you do something like that. But let's say you steal something, right? And the French police catch you, they will deport you back to Japan. They'll send you back to your country, right? So, and then what about this last one here? He will also be banned from representing Egypt. What does banned mean?
Ban means, how can I say, prohibited.
Exactly. He will be prohibited from representing Egypt. So let's look at this next part. It is unclear if the ban will be permanent. Right? Hundreds of protesters died when security forces stormed 2 sit-ins in the capital in August. Our correspondent says the punitive action against Mr. Yusuf will add to growing concerns about freedom of speech under Egypt's new military-backed government. So what about these two paragraphs then? What's a sit-in, Ken?
Sitting, people sitting on the street usually to protest something.
Absolutely. 100% correct, right? It's a way that you attract people to your cause, right? Or you make your cause visible when you sit in somewhere. Maybe 150 people are sitting in a restaurant, right? And they're not doing anything. They're not fighting. They're not doing anything. But they're just they're showing their resistance by sitting somewhere, right? And then what about this next word? Our correspondent says the punitive action against Mr. Yusuf. What is punitive?
Punitive.
Yeah, this is a tough word as well. This is a word that most American children probably don't know. Like most American high school kids probably don't know this word.
Kind of forcible?
Yeah, Ken, you're very close to the money. Punitive means very harsh. Something that's very harsh and meant to punish. See how punish has the P-U-N and punitive has the P-U-N, right? So our correspondent says this punitive action against Mr. Yusuf will add to growing concerns about freedom of speech under Egypt's new military-backed government. So do you think the government is saying that they are safeguarding democracy, right? They are preventing the old president from taking power because the old president was not a symbol of democracy. But do you think based on what you see in this article, does the new government seem like they care about freedom of speech?
From the beginning, they grabbed the power by force. It's not, I think it's not
It's clear.
It's not a democracy actually.
Yeah, right. They seize power. They seize power.
In order to prevent such kind of thing, the democratic system was invented.
Exactly, and they kind of destroy the democratic system, right?
Yeah.
So interesting situation, right? And then the rest of it is actually about this other guy, so we're not going to focus on that too much. But when we look at this topic, right, Ken? I mean, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions because it's actually kind of sad, right? It's kind of sad that because the Egyptian experiment, right? This experiment of democracy. I was telling a lot of my friends 2 years ago when this first started, 2011. I was in college and I told a lot of my friends this democracy will not last, right? And my reasoning for saying that I can't see the future. I'm not claiming to be someone I'm not, but I never wrapped my head around the fact that there is no culture of compromise in Middle Eastern politics. There is really no culture of compromise, and that's the most tragic thing for the people in the Middle East, right? If two sides don't agree on something, they find it better to kill each other instead of talking about it, right? And I don't know if maybe it's a question of maturity. If it's a question of these people just have not reached that level of communal understanding, that it's not me versus him, A versus B, right versus left, that it's really for the future of our country and for our people as a whole that we should be working towards resolving our differences, right? I don't know if they get that. I honestly don't think they get that. I think individuals get it, the society doesn't get it as a whole, right? So what's your reaction to this article, Ken? I mean, this guy wears his T-shirt, and now he comes home, he's back in Egypt, gets interrogated, and gets banned from Kung Fu. We don't know how long this ban is going to last. What do you think?
Maybe that's kind of eyes to eyes kind of things. Maybe we tend to be vicious circle. There's no compromise. If we compromise, they conquered us. Such kind of maybe. I think the politics, real politics, is moving on the power and compromise. Only the power is not. Only having power is not enough. But only compromise is not enough. The kind of real political war is a negotiation between the power and compromise.
Yeah,
To
sharing.
get agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's the understanding that power is something that should be shared among those who can best execute it. Right? I mean, you have democracy always talks about the will of the people. Okay, if the people is a simple majority of 51% says they want a government, then we should say the 49% also have a say in what goes on, right? And it's a struggle. It's a struggle in democracy always because the 51% is equal to 100%, right? Whoever gets the majority rules, right? At least that's how democracy is boiled down, right? But when it's not something that cut and dry, right? It's not black and white. Democracy, as many people as there are in a democracy, there are that many views, if not more, right? Each individual, I have different views about different things. You have different views about different things. You might vote for Obama, I might vote for Obama. But we have two very different ideas of what Obama should do, right? Or any situation, yeah.
It seems like democracy is a framework to, sometimes the battle, people battle inside the democratic frame. But if, in this case, government and militant broke that framework, so it's very difficult to be democratic now because the militant have already destroyed the democratic framework.
That's what it seems like. I haven't been to
Yeah.
Egypt, and my understanding of what's going on in Egypt right now is that people, there are supporters on both sides. People support the president, people support the military, right?
Mm,
For a variety of different reasons. I don't know why.
mm,
I honestly don't know what reasons they give for supporting one side versus the other. So it
mm,
would be incorrect for me or unfair for me to say what those reasons are. But I just don't understand why the culture of compromise just doesn't set in. You know, I mean,
mm,
it's difficult for me. I mean, do you think this will delegitimize this Egyptian government, this military-backed government? The fact that what they did to this Kung Fu star, do you think this will delegitimize them internationally, maybe in the eyes of other countries? Are people
mm.
going to start saying, you know, wow, this government is really not democratic?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this shows how the kind of demonstration of their government is not democratic for the world people's kind of maybe impression. Yeah,
Yeah,
they gave such impressions to world people.
the impression
Yeah,
they give to the international community
mm,
is a very negative impression right now, right?
right.
They're not showing any positive developments as far as I know. They're not showing that they're
Mm,
making progress,
mm,
right? It seems to be internal. It seems to be kind of a personal pride kind of thing. Like we
mm,
must take the president on trial or put the president on trial. We must punish the president
mm,
for what he did, but not necessarily working for the people. I don't think, right? Or maybe
mm,
they are. Maybe they're working for their supporters, but not for the president's supporters,
mm, right.
right? So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry. Hey, Ken. Welcome back. Sorry about
I'm
that.
so sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. It's fine. I was just asking you. I think you were saying something. You can continue saying whatever you were thinking. It's a conversation, so you can say whatever you like.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, I think it's kind of. I'm worried about current situation of Egypt. It's a crucial. So at least they achieved to establish a democratic government, but may not interpret this action. And maybe if they continue to this forceful action, maybe people uh, distrust the government. Maybe the government had was not changed. Maybe such kind of thing cause more radical action or something like that. So
Yeah.
kind of vicious circle.
Ken, I'm going to be very honest with you, right? Who do you think is ultimately responsible for Egypt's future? Is it the people? Is it the government? Is it the military? Is it the ex-president? Who is responsible for the future of the country? For the future of any country, who do you think is most responsible?
I think people chose democracy in Egypt, so they have to keep democratic system. That framework. I think that's very important. You know, uh, maybe and to create a feeling of trust to the government. So maybe response future is response it's difficult because now militants got the power of Egypt. So technically they have a responsibility now. But the former president cannot do anything because he was arrested. So I think media should be responsible as for future in this stage, on this stage. Maybe they create the new, a kind of new election and as soon as possible and to establish a new government there.
Yeah. So
Or
until that transition, the military has a responsibility, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But then once that transition happens, do you believe that the new government will then get the responsibility?
they should be responsible. Should be
That
keep democratic framework because it seems like people want democracy there. So
yeah,
it's the
I think
first
so too.
step. Yeah, that's the first step to establish democratic trust there. Yeah, people don't believe the government. It's very difficult to keep, how can I, such a democratic society. Even though
Yeah,
the meter says it's a democracy or something like that, but what they do and what they say are different. So,
yeah. You know, it's so true. It's so true. I honestly don't know. I mean, my limited understanding of Middle Eastern politics does not point me in an optimistic direction right now for Egypt. You know, my background and the very little information that I have learned and read about the situation doesn't seem to me like there is an optimistic solution as of right now on the ground, right? Maybe if things change and people get more, there's some new thing happens, right? Then possibly there's a likelihood of a peaceful resolution or some kind of a concession, some kind of a compromise, right? But I hate using the word compromise because I've never seen it in the Middle East. It's always been I have the bigger party, I have the bigger gun, I have the bigger population, and now I can defeat you. I mean, it's not about sitting down at the same table and saying, let us actually come to an agreement. You know, I can't remember something like that happening. When the only times I can think of something like that happening was when there was a mutual enemy. When 3 or 4 people got together, or groups or countries got together and said, okay, we have a mutual enemy, now let's work together. If there's no mutual enemy, and if it's just for the pure sake of compromise, for the sake of, or the pure act of compromise for the sake of a better future, I don't really remember, from my limited understanding, I don't remember of something like that happening in the Middle East, right? And I mean, it's all this this built-up rage that happens in the Middle East, right? So decades of one power ruling a country. Let's say one group or one person rules a country for decades, right? When the tables turn and the other side gets power, all of a sudden it's time to take revenge on those people, right? So all that built-up 35 years of built-up rage gets unleashed in 35 hours. Or something like that, right? Many people die, and violence results from this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. But last question for you, Ken, though, is do you think that the fact that this guy's medal was confiscated, was that too much, or was that an appropriate punishment for his crime?
100% inappropriate. Too much.
It was too much, you think?
And it shows a reverse effect, you know. Maybe
It
too
kind of
pressure
backfired on
on,
them, right?
yeah,
It
too
backfired
pressure
on
on
them.
Asian people and bad image about Egypt for foreign people.
Yeah, right?
And the many countries used to be like this situation. Kind of they conquered each other, like Europe or Japan or whatever. But after that, they realized maybe we cannot keep much longer after the World War II or World War One. Maybe big war happened, so people or government realize, oh, it's a huge loss for the people and maybe economy or kind of devastation. So that's why democracy system uh, you know was established.
Was established. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
We both said the
maybe
same
no,
word.
yeah. I hope they can be established. They can establish the democratic system there as well as
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
I hope so too, man. Unfortunately, it's very hard to tell right now if it will be possible or not.
Mm.
Um, all the reports I've read, it seems like they're waiting to put the ex-president on trial. I don't think his trial has begun, but I'm suspicious about how fair this trial is going to be.
Mm.
I'm a little anxious to see how this trial actually happens. Is it
Mm.
going to be a show trial? Is it going to be more propaganda? Is it actually going to be justice-based? Uh, if it will be a just trial. I mean, really, honestly, I think it should be a just trial, right? To gain legitimacy for themselves, the military should show real evidence of what they think is proof behind the president's actions. If they can show proof this president acted undemocratically, they should definitely present that, right? They need to make a case because the world won't believe them until they make a solid case, right? Until then, people will just be suspicious of the government, of the military for doing this. Yeah. So, Ken, I didn't mean to bore you with some of this complicated
No,
Middle
no,
East stuff.
it's very, yeah, interesting topic. Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, and the thing is, it permeates so much of society, right?
yeah,
This one thing is now in athletics. It's now in this guy's life. You know, the gold medal. I mean, a gold medal is a proud thing for Egypt, for the entire
yeah.
country, but they're taking it away from him.
Yeah, that's a reverse effect. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know, Ken, but
And won the gold medal is not easy. So
I know.
get rid of that medal, you know. He didn't do anything wrong. He won the gold medal by his effort. So nobody denied that effort. Yeah.
Exactly. But he messed with the wrong crowd. He messed with the military, I guess.
Right.
So that's his punishment.
Mm.
Right. Well, Ken, any other questions about the article or about the who, what, where, when, why, how questions or anything like that?
Yeah, it's okay for me.
Make sense?
But maybe so the athlete deported from Russia. That means Russia supports
No.
current
So
regime.
actually, no. This kung fu tournament was happening in Russia. So he was at the tournament representing Egypt, and after he was found wearing this T-shirt, he was deported from Russia. So I guess maybe the Egyptian government pressured Russia, and Russia said, "Okay, we will kick him out."
Okay, I got it.
Although I'm not sure, you know, it brings up an interesting point because the Russians wouldn't care, I think, what he wore, right? I mean, it's not a Russian problem. So maybe the Egyptian government pressured the Russians by saying, "Okay, he should come back because he did something that is bad for our country's image." Something
Okay.
like that. Yeah. Any other questions, Ken? Anything else going on? Interesting.
No.
Okay then. Well, I'm heading to San Jose right now, Ken. I hope to see you tomorrow in my classes. Otherwise, besides until then, have a great rest of the night or rest of the day, I should say.
Have a nice day. Have a nice night.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, take care.
I'm going to sleep like a baby. I've driven
Yeah.
like 16 hours today total. I think.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
So,
So it'll be great. But it's good to see you, Ken. I'll talk to you soon.
good to see you. Bye.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Because that's their asking. It's not. So, like this. So, there's yeah, I know because I'm watching you. I'm like, okay, this is scary. So after doing that a couple times, I was like, watching this guy. If you have a specific Robert, I love you. I go, oh. And I just like, it's like, why? You know, but if you do that, if you look at that, and so, so it's always a question whether it has to do with so I can just it's just true or false. It's just true or false. That's funny. That's really funny.
And then as soon as I told like
I know. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I love those things though. I haven't watched them. so true though. It's supposed to be. So that's so stupid. So like, wow. So just like being actually still. Not all someone still not so I watched this video. Oh, so 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 I was supposed to it's got two ways. So so it's actually so 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 that's so let's say so yeah. Yeah, that's how you do it. It's supposed to be and they have like